made it to Vermont, state 12 of 14 on the AT, which is also known as Vermud. This is going to be a long section. This mud is a little bit fun, but there's no shower option before getting into the tent at night. So that will be interesting. I used to take my shoes and socks off to soak my feet in cold streams, but now that they are drenched anyway from mud and puddles and walking through rivers literally on the trail, it's so much easier to take shorter breaks and pop them in and out of the water. The couple of water sources I've hit so far in Vermont have all been this kind of like light yellow pea color. It is filtering clear into the bottle, so I'm assuming that it's just from all the mud being stirred up from the rain. Meet the JNQ, the Just Nutella quesadilla. I'm chasing the JNQ with something at least slightly more nutritious for lunch. Just resupplied at the Walmart in Vermont, and they had no bags and no reusable bags for sale, so the cheapest option was birthday bags. Good morning on day 120 of my Appalachian Trail thru hike. Today is my 31st birthday, woo! I had a lot of fun celebrating in town last night, and now I am back at it today. It is going to be raining all day and seemingly for the next 3 days. I've already felt the Vermud experience in Vermont. It seems like it's a particularly rainy year, and on top of that, both the AT and the Long Trail have heavier traffic than most years. So the mud is out of control. It's a lot of sticking your trekking poles in first ahead of you to see how deep you're about to sink into it. Sometimes there's just no way around going straight through, so I am prepared for a very wet and muddy day. We'll see how it goes. The river trail continues. The trail is really moving, which makes me a little nervous about the river we're about to come up to the ford. Hoping it's not too powerful to cross. A bit hard to see where the actual trail is. Water is truly flowing into the trail from every direction. This was my first major ford. Definitely would not have been able to do it alone. My heart is still pumping. This was crazy. Getting across this was a group effort. Now we need to help a guy going southbound get to the other side before we move on. I am now pretty appreciative of hiking up these baby rivers to the shelter. Although I suppose with all these babies that are feeding that monster, that terrified me to cross. My heart rate has calmed down now that I'm alive. So that was actually pretty exciting. With so much mud and water, I was wondering why Vermont didn't have these boardwalks, but now I'm seeing why. They probably have had them in the past and they've just sunk into all the mud and water. The higher I climb up Glastonbury Mountain today, the lighter the trickle becomes that's pouring down the trail. At first I was nervous that wherever I end up pitching my tent, there's a good chance that it would get flooded, but hopefully if I'm pretty close to the top, I'll get lucky. Like this tent site, actually, for example, looks like it would be great, but it's completely flooded. Feel bad if anybody woke up here this morning. Lots of PUDs up at the top and some false summits, so seems like a shelter it is tonight. I'm not going to bother trying to find a campsite and get drenched. I'm going to call the sport of today trudging, more so than hiking. It takes a little longer to trudge. yesterday debating if I should do 3.1 or 31 miles for my 31st birthday, and in the end I did 10. I lost a shoe in the mud. I forded a terrifying river. It was a hard and slow-going day, but ultimately really fun, and somehow I stayed upright in all of the mud, and luckily it thunderstormed so hard overnight I got a spot in the shelter. So starting today with most of my stuff relatively dry, of course, except for my shoes and socks, which are just going to be wet until they're in a dryer. Today is going to be another rainy day, lots of elevation gain and drops, so going to be probably taking it pretty slow again. I learned that this July in Vermont is the wettest it's been since 1912, so that gives some insight into why the trail is so muddy and slippery, why there's rivers running down the trail, and why things like that stream yesterday say an easy rock hop in the guide, but it was actually a river rushing so hard that many people turned back, and it took 5 of us to daisy chain across, which is kind of crazy. So anyway, good fun. We'll see how the day goes. Whenever there is a break from the river trail, because it starts to flow off down the mountain on another path, the path that I'm walking on becomes literal mud puddles. This is what happens when you don't test the mud with your trekking pole first. I don't even remember what it's like to be clean. I need Vermont to do something different, so this whole video doesn't end up being me schlepping through mud and rivers. I wonder if Bernie is aware of these conditions. I'm walking over a footbridge on a river that's far less intimidating than yesterday's that we had to get across by foot. Today is very physical in the sense of, with all the mud and the river trail being super slippery, it takes a lot to stay upright. I'm actually feeling a lot in my arms, my elbows specifically, more than normal. Kind of testing with trekking poles and constantly catching myself from falling is putting more strain on them than they're used to. But today is significantly more a mental game. The hiking is slow. Honestly, I'm just not having fun. There's some days out here that are a great time, and others that just you have to get the miles done to get to your next point of resupply, for me, which is tomorrow. So I'm just trekking through and trying to stay positive, but it's not hard. It is hard. Words are hard. Words are hard and hiking is hard today. That's it. The sun has come out, as it always does, so the trail is a little less wet, but it's even more muddy. The hostel is prepared to have a power washer. They know what's up in Vermont. There's even this nifty dryer to pop them onto after you've washed them out and get them dry for the next day. The first pint of Ben & Jerry's at this hostel is only $1. God bless Vermont. Good morning. On day 123, I am coming out of a Nero day, walked into Manchester yesterday and stayed at the Green Mountain Hostel, which is one of my favorite from being on trail. They were
very prepared for some muddy hikers to roll in. The second we got there, I got to power wash my shoes to get all of the mud and dirt and grime off, all the little baby rocks stuck in the insoles, and put them in this chest that is a shoe dryer. So this morning when they dropped us back at the trailhead, I have these amazingly dry, comfortable shoes on. However, it is back to the grind, back in Vermont, about 4 more days until my next stop over in Rutland to get cleaned up. Thinking about these in shorter stints instead of one long hike has been helping me, given how much of a mental game it's become as I'm trudging through a lot of mud and a lot of rain. So my mindset is ready. 4 days, I got this.
I just climbed up Bromley, which is better known for people taking the ski lift up to and going down than actually hiking up. If only the lift could take us to the top of the next mountain. This giant meal replacement granola bar has high protein, calories, fats, carbs, everything that would scare you out of eating this in normal life, but a actual perfect lunch for a thru hiker.
Hello from a gloomy day in Vermont. Today happens to be the 4-month marker of me being on trail. I've already passed the 3/4 mark, and later today, once I've hiked up and over Killington, I'll hit 1,700, which means I'll officially have less than 500 miles to go. Today, I'll be celebrating with the Vermont Special, which I now know is just consistent mud and rain. I was at first pretty nervous for getting to New Hampshire. The whites are meant to be pretty tactical, super steep, very rocky, but the fact that the mud will end makes me so thrilled that I'm now looking forward to the state.
The trail today has actually been pretty smooth, a lot less mud. I learned that the mud stems from the mountains in Vermont being slates of quartz, which is not very porous, and there's a very little bit of ground soil. So since there's nothing for the water to soak into, it just sits on top and creates a lot of mud. However, going north, the terrain changes a bit, so there's a possibility that I've already been through the worst of it. Knock on wood. I spoke too soon on the mud being over. Lots of damp spider webs in this field. Like hundreds of them. Casual mudslide, made for a nice view. The rain has been on and off today, but there has been a constant flow of streams. Something about the sound of the water. I love it so much. It always makes for a good day.
So you guys be going to the Smokies?
Rain break with a fire.
I should be done. I plan on finishing like.
There's no view on top of Killington with all the fog, but the abandoned looking
ski lifts are pretty neat. I am channeling what it would be like to sit in an Adirondacks chair with a beer, staring at the beautiful view off of Killington on a nice day that's sunny and not in a cloud. I have showed you guys my Ursack before, which is what I store my food in. It's made out of a Kevlar material that bears aren't supposed to be able to tear into, so you can just use these strings to tie it to a tree instead of have to hang it at night. You're also meant to put these OPSAC bags in it that are smell-proof to ward off the animals even being able to sense that the bag is there. For the first time, it failed me on top of Killington. It actually wasn't bears, but a mouse got into it. It chewed a 1-inch by 1-inch, almost perfectly square hole, got into the smell-proof bags, ate a bunch of the food, and what it didn't nibble on, it pooped on. So I woke up, actually a relatively rough morning as it was. It rained really hard and the wind up on top was crazy. So all of the rain that was underneath the fly started to shake into the tent. So I woke up with a lot of wet stuff and a food bag that was torn in two. So I did decide to buy another Ursack, counterintuitive, I know, after it failed me, but having to throw a bag over a tree takes a lot of effort at the end of the day. So I decided to give the Ursack one more shot. Not great having to spend over $100 on another new piece of gear when I'm so close to the end of the hike, but it's something that seems worth it. So just know, if you are an Ursack user, that it doesn't necessarily protect against mice because their little tiny teeth are able to tear into it, whereas the bear claws cannot. So there you go. Since we're in Vermont, I have to share my favorite Ben and Jerry's fact, which is that Jerry is in the anosmic club with me. He has no sense of taste and smell, which means 50% of America's favorite ice cream duo can't even taste his own product. But anosmics, although you can't smell, which takes a lot of the nuance out of taste, the taste buds still work. So the basic categories like salty and sweet still function. And that is why Ben and Jerry's has so many awesome like salty sweet combos, and also they have such big chunks because texture is a big deal to people who don't have that deeper sense of taste. So fun facts. The hike into Rutland was definitely more of a challenge than I anticipated, more so the mental factor. Even trying to put on a good game face when it is just nonstop raining and really muddy, it is so hard to really enjoy it. You're looking down at your feet instead of looking up and enjoying the beautiful Vermont, and you can only be wet and dirty for so long before you've just had it. So I allowed myself to not be all smiles and sunshine, and just am trying to have a better outlook and hope I have better luck with the weather going into Hanover. There's that one moment most days in Vermont where you start with your feet kind of dry and then realize that the rocks are too far submerged to keep them that way. So goodbye, dry feet.
Vermont built this nice little boardwalk to get the tourists from their cars to the waterfall. Well, this is new. A 24-foot ladder going down a drop. Never saw one of them on trail before. Golden hour just hit. The rain cleared up. I'm working on making it to the lookout shelter for sunset. 360 views of Vermont from the top of the lookout shelter. This place is gorgeous. I think for mud is over. I have maybe 30 miles left of the state still, but today has been a lot of blood pumping, good old-fashioned Appalachian Trail up and downs.
but with no rain and without mud, with terrain that's just actual dirt paths that you can walk on without slipping and sliding and ending up ankle or even knee deep. That was a day. And in mud. So I'm in a good mood.
There's sun, and sun creates shadows. I forgot what it was like to see my shadow in Vermont. This section of the trail is super overgrown, probably because it's been getting a lot of water. Gonna have to do a pretty serious tick check tonight, rubbing up against so many leaves. I spy maple syrup tubes going directly across the trail. I've been so focused on getting through the mud, I forgot I should be eating syrup in this state. Going through a really beautiful field with 360 views of mountains all around. Feels like I should be singing some Julie Andrews with this field all to myself. I am walking up to my last shelter in Vermont. This shelter has a pretty hilarious privy. It almost looks like a ticket booth. Have views from all sides while using it. The rain is pouring down on top of the shelter. So much for the sunshine lasting. Last day of Vermont. Woo! I don't think the rain will be stopping as I walk into New Hampshire, but the terrain will be changing, and mud will be out the door. We'll be swapping these dirt, muddy trails for rocks, which comes with its own set of problems, but I'm looking forward to not being as filthy. Last night's storm was intense, but I'm hoping that the sky got all of the water out and that my final day in Vermont will be mostly dry. We'll see. I'm halfway through the day, and although it has not rained, this creek is flooded enough that there is no way to get through it without getting my feet drenched. But you know, I guess it wouldn't be Vermont if I didn't leave on my last day with soaking wet suit and socks. Officially survived Vermont. I did not drown or go through the quicksand mud. Well, Vermont managed to rain on me at least part of every single day that I was in this state. So the bits where it wasn't raining, I'll say, when you actually get to look up and enjoy the terrain, it was gorgeous. So instead of saying farewell to the state, I'm going to say see you next time. The long trail split off after about 105 miles when it, followed along with the AT walking into Vermont. So there's some interesting trail that I haven't done yet, and it could be cool to come back in a not so rainy season just for a weekend or a week, a shorter trip, no more of this 6-month stuff. And get to enjoy it. When you're through hiking, regardless of the weather, you wake up in the spot you're in and you get up and you hike for the day. So not much choice in the matter. But for shorter trips, I am excited to get back outside with a little more choice in the matter. So yeah, that is all for this week. Next week we'll be in New Hampshire. The terrain is about to change quite a bit and get a lot harder. So ready to take that on.